wisdom,
prudentia,
justice,
justitia,
temperance,
temperantia,
courage.
fortitudo.
Applying ancient philosophy to modern life, this is the Sunday Stoic.
All that is in tune with thee, O universe, is in tune with me. Nothing that is in due time for thee is too early or too late for me. All things come from thee, subsist in thee, and go back to thee. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations, Book 4.23.
Welcome to the Sunday Stoic Podcast. My name is Steve,
And my name's Dan.
and we're here to discuss the modern application of ancient philosophy. This week, we are discussing the concept of Amor Fati, which is the idea of loving your fate. As Dan just read, we had a quote there from Marcus. I'm going to sort of paraphrase quote one myself now as well. Lead me, O Zeus, the way I am bid by you to go. To follow I am ready. Should I choose not, I make myself a wretch, and yet still must follow. Which is a prayer from the hymn to Zeus found also in the Enchiridion by Epictetus, where he is quoting, is it Chrysippus who wrote that?
No, Cleanthes.
Cleanthes, thank you. Yes, Cleanthes.
The second head of the Stoa.
That's right. So the idea here is that our lives are somewhat fated, meaning we can't control what's happening around us or what our destiny has in store for us. We can respond and we can make some decisions and take action in terms of what's going on around us, but we don't choose this path that we're on. The idea being, rather than bemoaning it, whining about it, we can accept it, or perhaps, as some would argue, not just accept it, but love it as if it's given to us by God himself.
Amor Fati is closely related to the discipline of desire. And the goal of the discipline of desire is that we should never fail to gain what we desire or fall into that which we wish to avoid. And the way we do that is to only desire what is up to us, which is virtue, and only feel aversion to vice, which is also up to us. Everything else in the universe is indifferent. That sounds great, but what does it mean? For the person who has been acclimated to what we call normal human society, it means a lot of hard work, because included in the category of indifferent is a wide range of things that are seriously dispreferred, like disrepute, poverty, disease, injury, being maimed, and even death. Even though we would not select those adversities for ourselves or our loved ones, we must not be averse to them, because adverse events are inevitable, and if we are averse to dispreferred indifference, we risk falling into a passion and behaving inappropriately. And one way the Stoics cultivated an acceptance of all the events of the universe, including the most challenging adversities, was Amor Fati. Amor Fati means love of one's fate, which is a Latin term first coined by Friedrich Nietzsche, and was notably borrowed by Pierre Hadot. Since Pierre Hadot, it has come into wide use in the Stoic community. That doesn't mean that Stoics are implementing a Nietzschean concept. Amor Fati was already a concept in Stoicism, but the Stoics lacked a shorthand term. There are many philosophical terms that modern Stoics use that were not coined by the ancients. The most well-known is, of course, the dichotomy of control, but there are others. Modern folks like to have a term they can use to quickly communicate a mutually understood concept so we can move on to the next thing. The philosophers of antiquity, instead of using a shorthand term like dichotomy of control, would actually take the time to expound the whole thing, which can take paragraphs if you want to do the concept justice. Amor Fati is another shorthand term that was developed in modern times for a concept the philosophers of antiquity would use phrases or whole paragraphs to describe. In Stoicism, Amor Fati requires that we so align ourselves with the events we encounter in life that we do more than just accept them. We will them to occur exactly as they do with all our hearts. That seems achievable to me for day-to-day adversity, But this seems to me to be too much to ask when dealing with the more serious adversities that humans encounter. I think it is enough that we do not rail against circumstance or God, if you are so inclined, and instead concentrate on the most virtuous way to respond to the presented adversity. So, in this respect, I differ from Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus.
Yeah, let's just hear from Epictetus on that before we discuss further.
If you can convince me that I'm mistaken, I welcome it.
No, I'm not here to convince you. I'm just gonna. I shall channel Epictetus. Do not seek to have everything that happens happen as you wish, but wish for everything to happen as it actually does happen, and your life will be serene. Epictetus, Enchiridion 8. I think that this whole idea only fully makes sense if you subscribe to the concept that the cosmos is providential and, like basically infused with the will of Zeus, as it were, and things are unfolding the way they're supposed to.
And not only that, but that divine providence actually takes an interest in humanity and in the flourishing of humanity. So that when you suffer something, it's for the greater good.
Exactly. And as you said, I have a harder time that can help you get through everyday things. This is just what's meant to be. I'll be all right. This is the will of God, or the way it's supposed to be, or that's how fate wills it. But when you find yourself in something a little more tragic or awful, my brain jumps to the stories my grandfather told me about liberating Dachau concentration camp and things like that. Like what those individuals went through, just blowing it off as, well, that's just my fate. Doop-a-doo. I love it. That it's like, I don't know. I don't know if maybe that kind of thing can help you get by moment to moment in an awful situation. But when you looking at it from a more zoomed out global perspective, it's harder to think about it that way for me anyway. That this is just the way it's supposed to be. We all know that Stoicism doesn't advocate inaction, but this view might be one of the better mental attitudes you can take when action is impossible, perhaps, where there's just nothing you can do to improve the situation that you find yourself in. Like, well, this is the way it is. I just got to try to get through it. Of course, that's not quite the same as loving it. So I don't know. What do you think, Dan?
I agree. If the universe is, in fact, a perfectly ordered and rational organism, my personal view is that the universe is beneficent, but in a limited sense. By providing a natural universe subject to consistent physical laws, the universe presents an environment where humans and other life forms can exist and flourish. However, I think that the idea that the Logos designed the unfolding of events in such a way as to demonstrate care for the flourishing of a particular human being, or even humanity in general, is rather egocentric.
Sure.
I can't accept that when I become ill or something terrible happens to a friend or family member, that it's for the greater good.
The greater good.
The greater good. Instead, events that we would prefer not happen are just the inevitable result of causal determinism, the web of causation, not because an individual child developing cancer is beneficial to humanity as a whole, somehow.
Right. Yeah, I know it's been argued that, well, you can't take the God's eye view of the cosmos, so you can't see how the child dying of eye cancer or whatever is a good thing. But in the grand scheme of things,
That's really convenient to say, like, it is good. You just can't see that
right,
why
yeah,
it's
yeah,
good. It's to embody Amor Fati, we must so align our desires with events that it is as if we wished them to happen exactly as they do. So let's go through an extreme hypothetical. You're in the doctor's office, and the doctor says, I am sorry, but there's no easy way to say this. Your child has late stage brain cancer. Now, if we are to live Amor Fati, when taken to its ultimate conclusion, we would have to say that if my child developing brain cancer is what the universe brings, that is what I want too. To me, that seems to be a bridge too far, and is one of the places where people outside our school may have a point when they say that Stoics are too unfeeling and borderline inhuman. I'm not saying the only appropriate response to serious adversity is to fall into a passion. I still view passions as counterproductive and morally corruptive. What I am saying is that the appropriate response would be to accept the events of the universe as they are, withhold assent to the impression, and strive to respond in the most virtuous way that we are able, fulfilling our social roles in a rational manner. And events of the universe are ultimately indifferent, even the highly dispreferred events. What matters is the way we respond to those events. Misfortune, when borne nobly, is good fortune. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 4.49. But it's a wide gap between bearing misfortune nobly and loving the dispreferred event.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's why I don't know. I can go along with that idea, like you just said, and Seneca here in letter 107. The willing soul fate leads, but the unwilling drags along. Which, of course, is a reference to the dog and cart idea, where a dog leashed to a cart is going to have to follow the cart. The cart's moving down the road. The dog's leashed to it. The dog can either run behind the cart and enjoy what freedom that brings in terms of its movements and what it can do, or the dog can be drugged by the cart.
Right, he can dig his paws in and do all he can to pull against that ox cart, but that ox cart's going to keep going forward no matter what. And
Absolutely.
he's going to get dragged along the road and feel every rock that he's pulled over, or like you said, he can keep his feet and try to do the best he can with what freedom he has.
So the question is, should the dog love the fact that it's behind the cart, or is it enough to just bear it nobly, and do the best they can?
Well, for much of the journey, I'm sure that the journey is a pleasant one,
Sure.
and he's sure to enjoy the moments that he can. But the events that he can't avoid, but are dispreferred, to fight against them, like we said, you're going to just make it worse for yourself. And one way that the ancients tried to express Amor Fati was using the analogy of us as a body part, for example, the foot. It is often said that if the foot knows what a vital role it plays in the well being of the whole organism, it would want to be thrust repeatedly into the mud so that the body could get to where it needs to go. In this analogy, the foot is the individual human that has to suffer so that the whole organism, the rest of humanity, can flourish. I shall say that for the foot, it is according to nature for it to be clean. But if you take it as a foot and as a thing not detached, it will befit it both to step into the mud and tread on thorns, and sometimes to be cut off for the good of the whole body. Otherwise, it is no longer a foot. We should think in some such way about ourselves also. What are you? A man. If you consider yourself as detached from other men, it is according to nature to live to old age, to be rich, to be healthy. But if you consider yourself as a man, and a part of a certain whole, it is for the sake of that whole that at one time you should be sick, at another time you should take a voyage and run into danger, and at another time to be in want, and in some cases die prematurely. Why, then, are you troubled? Do you not know that as a foot is no longer a foot if it is detached from the body, so you are no longer a man if you are separated from other men? For what is a man? A part of a state, of that first which is the cosmopolis, then the lesser state, which is a small image of the universal state. What then? Must I be brought to trial? Must another have a fever, another sail on the sea, another die, and another be condemned? Yes, for it is impossible in such a body, in such a universe of things, among so many living together, that such things should not happen, some to one and others to others. Epictetus Discourses, Book 2.5.
I'm a foot.
It's a pretty long quote, but it does a good job of explaining how, if you believe that divine providence exists, first of all, and second of all, that it takes a particular interest in the flourishing of humanity as a whole, that your individual suffering is less important.
Right.
You should be indifferent to it because you know that when you get ill and die or get maimed or something, that it's because these things have to happen to somebody. Why not you? That you took that punch for the whole team, you know?
Right. You're part of the whole, and if what you're doing is for the good of the whole, it's easier to accept. Now, if it seems arbitrary, it might be harder. But if you're injured doing something for the good of others, or you suffering prevents others from suffering, it makes that purpose easier, at least for me to see. It makes it clearer. Of course, there's the idea that this illness is out there. Someone's going to have to catch it. Why wouldn't it be you? What did anyone ever say it couldn't be you? Of course not, And so bear it nobly as well as you can. You can still serve as an example of how to bear things nobly, even if you're not able to do the things that you would prefer to be doing. You can. Epictetus talks about showing someone how to be ill. How does someone bear illness nobly? Be an example, even when you're suffering from things that you would prefer not to be going through.
I think it's important to recognize the fact that these men that developed this idea were not strangers to hardship.
Absolutely.
For example, Marcus Aurelius lost his biological father at a young age, and then he was adopted as the grandson of Emperor Hadrian, who was never very kind, but he turned downright tyrannical and murderous in his final years. Marcus had to live in the same house as Hadrian, who was not above killing the people closest to him when he was in a fit of paranoia. And as an heir, you would have some reasons to be paranoid of your grandson, I guess. When Marcus eventually came to the throne, he had to fight off barbarian incursions, war with the Parthians, deal with the civil war, and a plague that wiped out a considerable percentage of the empire's population. And on a personal level, the majority of his children did not see adulthood. So, for this man to say that he strived to align his will with every event of the universe is pretty impressive.
Right.
Epictetus had a serious list of adversities in his own life. These guys put their money where their mouth is. But as I mentioned earlier, I think it helps them when they believed that divine providence took a particular interest in humanity and had our best interests at heart when it designed the universe.
Right. Right. Yeah. I think Marcus lost like 8 or 9 children in his lifetime.
He had 14 of them with Faustina, and 6 of them lived to adulthood.
There you go. There you go.
So he lost 8.
Wow. But yeah, so they were no strangers. It's amazing when you think that the fact that the emperor of Rome there, the Roman emperor, basically the most powerful person in the Western world, lost that many children. No, he was no stranger to suffering. So imagine if that's what having the best doctors got you, was losing 8 children. What did it mean to be your average person?
Indeed.
That's why some people say Stoicism is a philosophy that thrives in times of hardship and war and things, because it's an armor to put on yourself to get through. Stoicism can be extra beneficial in times of great difficulty.
Another time that I've read that it enjoys resurgences of popularity is in times of great moral corruption,
Hmm.
because people that are rejecting the moral corruption and want something better for themselves and the people they care about study Stoicism during those
Sure.
times.
Even in ancient Stoicism, there are different flavors, as it were, different levels of strictness and asceticism and things. You can be pretty strict with yourself following different models of how to practice the philosophy. And sometimes that strictness might be thrust upon you by conditions, or it can be a response, as you said, to moral issues like, well, I'm going to take on this more strict way of living because I'm so disgusted with the excesses of those in power or whatever. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Or even just society in general.
sure.
I'm pretty sure that's a big part of why it was so popular with the Romans, because they looked around and saw the luxurious living and cruelty, and depravity, and they wanted something better. So they rejected it and studied Stoicism and tried to implement it.
Right.
Speaking of different flavors, you can take the view of divine providence that it takes an interest in humanity and even individual humans. That seems to be the view of Epictetus. And as someone who follows the Epictetan line of Stoicism, it is the view of Marcus Aurelius as well. Here is an example of how Epictetus demonstrates the personal nature of his view of divine providence. It is difficulties which show what men are. Therefore, when a difficulty falls upon you, remember that divine providence, like a trainer of wrestlers, has matched you with a rough young opponent. For what purpose, you may say? Why, that you may become an Olympic victor. But that is not accomplished without sweat. Epictetus, Discourses, Book 1.24. On the other hand, you can take a view of divine providence that it provides and sustains the physical universe subject to consistent physical laws, but it is not personal in that it takes an interest in humanity. The best description I have encountered for this view is expressed by Seneca in his work On Anger. Foolish people who know not the truth hold the gods answerable for storms at sea, excessive rain, and long winters. Whereas, all the while, these phenomena by which we suffer or profit take place without any reference whatever to us. It is not for our sake that the universe causes summer and winter to succeed one another. These have a law of their own, according to which their divine functions are performed. We think too much of ourselves when we imagine that we are worthy to have such prodigious revolutions effected for our sake. Seneca, On Anger, Book 2.27. So, when dispervered events occur, it's not personal, and it is irrational to get angry at the world. Everything that happens is the inevitable result of a confluence of preceding causes, the web of causation. Anger usually stems from a sense that we have been subjected to malicious injustice. But since the events of the universe are not malicious or targeted attacks, becoming angry at dispervered events is irrational. For those that are able to live Amor Fati and are able to perfectly align their will with all the events of the universe, so as to wish them to have happened exactly as they have happened, even the most challenging adversity, I envy them in some ways. But at this stage of my understanding, I'm at the bear and forebear outlook on dispreferred events.
Bear and forebear. Persist and resist, right?
That's right.
So, what do you think? Let us know. How do you view this idea? Are you a strong advocate of loving your fate? Everything is as it should be? Do you take some other nuanced approach? You can email us at sundaystoic@gmail.com.
Yes, please do write in and let me know all the details on where I'm mistaken. I would love to be able to say that I fully embrace Amor Fati.
Absolutely. So let us know what you think. And remember to take what you can from the podcast, apply it in your everyday life, and see what changes it brings to the way you approach the world. Let us know also if there's any topics you'd like us to discuss. We'll be happy to entertain that. If you have anything else you'd like to share, once again, sundaystoic@gmail.com. And get out there. And don't forget to seize the day.
Carpe diem!